Welcome to Biztech's Asia's hottest startup show. Our guest today is Giva Kuppusamy, founder and CEO of GK Aqua. GK Aqua is a biotechnology startup that was formed to commercialize and implement its cutting-edge technology to improve freshwater prawn farming efficiency. Now, to tell us more, we have Giva. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for inviting us to be here, and thanks a lot.
Now, Giva, give us a perspective of GK Aqua and its journey so far.
All right, so GK Aqua been formed in 2016, but the passion in freshwater prawn farming industry started back then when I went to graduate school. So one of the history really nailed me when I studied this genetics of freshwater prawn, because in 1960, we were the first country discovered how to breed these prawns in captive. So we took it from wild, and then we did all the technology aspect of it, and to produce in the man-made environment. And we exported this technology. But fast track 60 years, we are importing 90% of what consumed and only produce merely about 300 metric ton when the import is trespass about 3,000 metric ton. So then after left the graduate school, I joined industry. I worked in aquaculture farms and then research institutions and academic background. And then eventually I set up GK in 2016. With the only aim to revolutionize and democratize how the farming for freshwater prawns can be done in Malaysia and also globally with technology, disruptive innovations.
Okay, so you talked about technology, you come from a research background, you said you went to graduate school, you were inspired. Tell us about the technology behind your business.
All right, so it's simply, globally, freshwater prawns was very famous in 1980s, right? Right after that, the period went to tiger prawns in late 90s. And then now what we call Leptopenes venami is a small shrimp from America, is imported largely to Southeast Asia, really putting down all of mangrove forests to do intensive farming. So the familiarity with freshwater prawn gone slowly not becoming very famous, primarily because of the male and female interactions, which makes the females become less predominantly bigger, the males bigger. So this is a technology behind it, right? I mean, this is a problem statement behind it, because in freshwater prawns, 70% of them females, 30% is males. So they have mating ratio of 1:4 or more, what we call in scientific term polygamy. And because of that, the females will fight among them to get the best males, right? In the event of fighting, the mortality rate increases. And after they get buried, they carry the eggs. So all the feed intake they take goes into development of the egg development. Therefore, the females in 6 months only can grow to 50 grams, whereas the males during the same period can grow to 200 grams. So then in early 90s, people looked at this challenge in India and Bangladesh. They tried to do manual segregation of male and females when they come to a certain stage. But that's very labor intensive, and also accuracy wise to, anywhere not closer to 100% males. And then there was a lot of studies done in area of crustaceans, how to make male crabs and male prawns and stuff like that. And then we applied the same technology in the freshwater prawn to knock out the gene for the male prawns. Do not worry, it's non-GMO. Our Malaysian government, what we have, biosafety department have validated all the facts to this as non-GMO, neither non-LMO technology. So then we knock out the gene of the male prawns, they technically become pseudo-females, which carrying a ZZ chromosomes. And then we meet them with the normal males, absolutely normal males with the ZZ chromosome. Therefore, the progenies become 100% males. So that's the biotechnology disruption.
Basically, correct me if I'm wrong, what does that mean then is your yields will go up?
All right, so yeah, I forgot about the features, right? So what happens is when the males alone, they can grow because there's no females to fight for, there's no females to have matings. Therefore, they just eat and grow, right? That's the only activity that does. So if they do so, they can grow to 200 grams in 6 months, in just short 4 months marketable size, which is 70 to 80 grams, okay? And for prawns, and they take a faster rate to market, which is 4 months. Conventionals takes 6 to 9 months. And the farmers get almost 500% increase in yield. So this is an example. If the farmers buy 100,000 of male and female babies, the same here is 100,000, but the conventional only give 300 to 400 kilos. but on the all meal will give them about 1.2 to 1.5 metric ton, or 1,200 kilos to 1,500 kilos. And the farmers doesn't need to do selective harvest. That means it doesn't need to select the big ones to sell. In our scenario, they just can harvest one time and just dispose it to the market or sell it to the market. So those all the different growth rate, survival rate, faster turnover, and a bigger size, which gives more value for the prawns. Is in the prawns, when the size is 100 gram and 200 grams, the value per prawns doubles or triples or quadruples. Yeah.
Now, Giva, that sounds fascinating because it addresses a very big problem right now, which the world is facing, which is food security. And really now governments, and the Malaysian government has sounded alarm bells about the amount of food we are actually importing. Obviously, this is something that's pretty sexy. How are you engaging the Malaysian government or various agencies, and what are you doing in this space?
So yeah, so I have to admit we are really a hot cake in the market. Every other day we get a call from government agencies to work with us on this conundrum. I think the message I'm trying to really clearly deliver for Malaysians or Malaysian government is basically everything goes back to genetics and breeding, right? If we disrupt the innovations, we are gifted with so much of biodiversity in the country. Let it be ikan emperau, selling at $400. Why you need to sell at $400? You can produce them. They take 2 years to grow, but you can make them within 1 year. You can sell it as 80 ringgit instead of $400 to some Chinese tourists or honkies or Singaporean coming to Malaysia, right? And second thing is really easy to scale model in terms of food security, because technology need to be localized. This is what we learned from pandemic, and of course with the war now. Localization of technology is very, very fundamental. We can't be looking outside the country, say, I can buy the A, B, C, and C and put them together and I get the answers, right? I mean, I give you another example. Until today, when people talk about food security, there's a lot of misconception in that. Say I can produce vertical farmings in the towers in that. So that's all helps, but still, we need to have the control of the upstream, which is seed technology, right? And that can build the pathway, and that's exactly we have done with freshwater prawn. We got absolute control of our own local genetic resources and add genetic sophistication and scale up that efficiently to get higher yield in shorter time and meet the local demand of the market.
There's another thing that's missing in this piece, which is around the feed for the prawns. Is it imported feed, or do you have a proprietary technology that you use to feed them?
All right. So when it comes to feed, right? So I really take this opportunity to tell the world, right? It's not written in the Bible or Quran that I have to feed them with soybean meal. The soy doesn't grow here for the chickens or the fish, right? And don't find any soybean meal in the rivers, right? So this is a common sense. We have to go back to the nature and understand what exactly they eat, right? So in this fundamental, what we found that can we now, it's a hot topic to feed the fish or prawns or animals, chicken like poultries with insects, right? Insects is a big story. And going in the direction, the entire world have looked at converting some useless biomass like kitchen waste and etc. to produce useful biomass for aquaculture. But what we have done, we have developed a particular crop called Sesbania, in English called hummingbird leaf, right? Predominantly can be planted on a very poor soil, which fixes nitrogen, takes away carbon dioxide from the environment, and stick it to where around our farms. And we take this leaf and feed it to the prawns. A lot of people come and say, Giva, why is stupid? You take the plant and feed direct to the prawns. Why you need the maggots in between, the black soldier fly maggots? I say it's simple, because we can't feed the plant directly to the prawns because the plant has anti-nutritional factors and other issues in terms of palatability. So we give it to vector, black soldier fly. Basically, the hypothesis is what you eat, what you are, right? And why we take this method instead of going around everything else, because when we involve waste, you have scalability issue, food safety standards, halal issues, and everything else. And these plants, let me give you an example. If I do 1 acre of prawn farming, only 50% is water bodies, Rest 50% of the land become the water, the pond perimeter, barns, the load access and everything. This is where exactly we put the trees. And we have done our pilot. From 1 acre of biomass of these trees can feed 6 acres of my prawn farm. Very, very, very sustainable, very,
so it's
very
a
scalable.
very good conversion in terms of acreage to yield in terms of food.
Exactly, and that's overarching 52% carbon dioxide emission cut off from the supply coming from marine ingredients and taking carbon from the atmosphere. Everybody talking about Malaysia. Malaysia is committed in COP21, Paris Agreement, carbon sequestration as our commitment. I think what we are doing is very in line with that.
Now, Giva, how have your company is about 6 years old now. Tell us about your growth and growth over the last 6 years and where you're at today.
All right, so 2016, I formed the company, started everything in my house basement with myself, my wife, with 2 people, hire people. Within 1 month, everybody ran away because there's no fancy facilities. There's no, real big factories and stuff like that. So we struggled along the way until 2018 to prove our concept, to tell the farmers, hey, my prawns just produce all meal, and then you can, because farmers being farmers, you have to give them something which they can believe, right? And that's start happening 2018. And then by then, the government have given us 1.2 million ringgit to really increase our proof of concept to pre-commercialization.
And you got a grant, that 1.2 million from?
Platform Ventures, back then under agency in Malaysia, under MOSTI, Ministry of Science and Technology. And right after that, we have proven our sales track record, starting a revenue of 200,000, 300,000. Finally, 2020, Cradle jumping, they gave us 2 million ringgit.
So Cradle Fund is the VC arm of Cradle Fund?
No, it's really a grant, what they call Accelerate Fund. I have to be really thankful to them, because all this while they looked at all kind of different e-commerce, IT, and I think we were the first very kind of agri-tech business they got into. And the KPI was to deliver 2.4 million ringgit in the 16 months period during the fund. And we just completed our 16 months last month from the day one we received. And we have achieved 2.6 million ringgit revenue against the KPI. So we are finished with the grant.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
One of the key things with this is, of course, and you just alluded to that, is getting the farmers on board.
Yep.
Okay. How did you go to market when you started? And then how are you going to market now in terms of working together with various stakeholders in the industry to get adoption by farmers?
I think it's all simplicity and boils down to trust and integrity, right? So during early days, when we started in 2018, a farmer ordered 100,000 babies, who only able to produce 50,000. So I still remember he came to me and said, look, Giva, you produce fantastic product, but you need to give me more so that I can fill out all my ponds. So that was a challenge for GK from 2018 to 2020. Right, we went to Thailand, we went to Vietnam, we hired some expatriate because we had the technology, but the know-how to scale up to produce a number of babies consistently with quality was a challenge. And that's where we break through after Cradle Funds came in, and we did everything again to localize the technology. And then going to the farmers, the product was good since 2018. So the word of mouth went around, and it's like, and the country itself, as I mentioned, that there's not many hatcheries to produce the seeds. Since we were one of the players in the market, and as I said, trust was the key, and our business easily grown, and everybody start to know about GK, and they start subscribing. And the very fact that even the government Department of Fisheries are sending their guys coming for attachment here to learn from us now.
The key challenge will also be then, as we work towards food security, is around having more farmers basically growing the crop, in this case prawns, so that we can reduce our import bill. How are you doing that in terms of, you've got an initiative called the Malaysian Udang Galang Agripreneurs Initiative. Tell us about that and how that helps from a social impact perspective.
All right. So our business model, we have to sell more babies, buy back more prawns. So definitely, you pointed out, you nailed it. We need more farmers, and that's not. We are not in India or Bangladesh for us to have thousands of farmers to sell billions of babies. If I were to be in China, the demand for these babies is 40 billion. That's like $400 million revenue, right? If I were to be in India, it's 10 billion, right? We are not there. So we are here. So here, what we are really doing, we're getting two different pool of people, youngsters. Hey, I really want to do prawn farming. I neither have land, no capital, right? And then, so what do we do that? So we went and acquire farms, so during COVID, there's a lot of fish businesses went to closures. So the farms were abandoned. So we literally took over 52 acres of farm in Taiping with 35 ponds. And we just started it last January. We're getting to first harvest next week. And in that, what we do, we secure, so they don't have money, right? So what we do, we talk to financial institutions, like now we are in discussion with Agrobank, to appoint GK as anchor. So in this model, the participants do not get the physical money in the hand, because it's not to say they are not going to spend the money with honesty or whatever, but we don't want to burn the money unnecessarily. So we give them a very disciplined usage. That means all through invoice financing. So when we buy back the prawns, we park in an escrow account, the banks stick to repayment, the money floats for the night cycle, right? Like this, an aquapreneur owning 3 ponds of quarter acre or 1,000 square meters potentially can increase, as let's say we take a fresh graduate in Malaysia coming from aquaculture, you get 2,000 ringgit right up front, right? But joining this program, he can get up to 6,000 to 9,000 ringgit per month and elevating his income. So we take the bottom 40 of Malaysians who are earning 1,000, 1,500 a month, joining the program with the intensive training for us for 3 months upon graduating, joining this, because we do have a training program for 3 months before even we decide them to put on program, because the bank trusting our capabilities to choose the best ones. So why that we can do that? And secondly, we also have people with money, right? Hey, I got 50,000 ringgit, but I don't have land, I don't have people. How can I participate in this? So for this, we also match them with our aquapreneurs. So usually we'll get about 50% margins in that farming. So what we do, we split, we give the investor 15 to 20%. The guys on the ground who's doing the job get 30% of the return. And why I want to do this, right? A lot of businessmen come to me and say, look, I can get the cheap laborers and give him 10 ponds and pay them 2,000 ringgit, right? And that's not what GK is expecting. GK's aim to supply 1 billion babies and buy back, $500 million worth of prawns to make the business to grow bigger. And this is how we do it. We want to run the biggest farm without owning the farmers, but we provide the necessity in terms of input and output.
So the thing is, from an income potential, you're looking at $500 million per annum turnover. When do you think you'll be able to achieve something like that?
In the next 4 years, we are scaling up there. So It's not really $500 million. It's a 600 million business potential just for Malaysia market, by just taking 1% of seafood consumption potentially for freshwater prawns.
That's interesting. So I suppose if I'm an investor, then what makes your investment attractive to invest in? What sort of returns are we looking at in terms of investing in you?
So every investor put in 1 ringgit or $1, they want to get $2 or $10 in the matter of sequence of event, right? So in this perspective, we are really looking at an IPO eventually. That's next 3 to 4 years, hopefully next 4 years by 2026. And I can't really focus, but then definitely they will get at least more than 2x, because our business is really not subscriptions. Yeah, we're getting there with the prawn subscription in the market for B2C market. But really, biological thing, if I take 6 months to grow them, you give me 100 million ringgit to make it 100x just in next short 6 months. I think that's something we have to be very careful about, because it comes to livestock, it has its risk.
One of the risks that for me as an investor who has never invested in agriculture, that's a risk. Prawns get sick, prawns die. How do you negate that in your
Okay,
business?
so our mantra is everything about low density farming big prawn because it's called as Malaysian giant prawn. It's not small prawns, right? So when we do low density, like the room you're sitting, you have 2%, 3% is fine. When you put 20, 30, you're going to have chaotic situation. Again, this is the whole point. A lot of farmers missing when they get greedy, they do high density, the prawns fall sick, right? But in the upstream, as a biotechnology company, we screen every father and the mother prawns to be free of disease, right? Why we can do this? If we send one sample, one virus, we send to an external lab, the cost is 150 ringgit. When we do it in-house, is 1 ringgit 50 cents, 100x reduction in cost. So this is where we as an upstream biotechnology company are really in full control of the health of the animals. And then we built the safety standards or SOPs in place so the prawns don't really go fall sick, but that's by lowering down the density. And on top of that, when we use hummingbird larvae, which is really give them more than protein, also immunostimulants to be resilient to environmental stress. As we speak, we're already doing so many trials to elevate the pH level, to elevate the salinity, to elevate the temperatures, because we have to accept climate change as inevitable. Right? Mm-hmm. This is where we are doing. So this species and on bonus of all that, this freshwater prawn is really, really resilient. It's really a village boy, right? You put him anywhere, he will strive and thrive. Provided we have good genetic sources, this is where Malaysia comes, because the freshwater prawn being known Malaysian giant prawn because the genetics originated from here. So naturally, he'd been thrived and well adapted in the global, in the process of biological evolutionary process.
Now, you own your own technology. You basically are growing your own fries. What are the expansion plans for GK Aqua beyond Malaysia?
So as we already have an agreement in India to supply the special neo females. We already shipped about 3,000 brood stocks worth about 80,000 US. We just signed an agreement in a country called State of Guyana in Latin America, where this is an abundance of sugarcane farmings where they're revitalizing to freshwater prawns. We already have a market demand now in Philippines. Don't ask me why we are not in China. We didn't want to go to China because China will create huge demand. And one fine day, they're not going to answer your call. That's exactly happening in durian. That's exactly happened with our bird nest. So again, history have told repeatedly the history of what will happen when you scale so much, just depending one single country, right? And this is where we are not taking the risk. Bangladesh, we are looking at it. But all these countries, we just sell them the special brood stock because they go and deal with it. Whether you ask me whether this will be a threat to Malaysia, where the import in fluctuation will be there, not so much because we are really selling fresh prawns. So when you say fresh, it's live. So Malaysia have a biosafety rules not to import live prawns into the market, not even from Thailand. So this is where the regulatory issues, regulatory is in place, give us an advantage to sell the Malaysians live udang at the doorstep, the freshest quality they can ever have.
Giva, it's been a fascinating conversation. I learned a lot about agriculture, researching this for the show and from you as well. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
$1 million question. So I have a lot of final thoughts, but I think, a lot of investors do ask us, right? It's not sexy enough. I can put this money somewhere else and grow 10x and 100x. There's many going on in the capital market. But I think what we really want, food on table, it matters. And by investing in GK to grow as a large, large business, my personal endeavorance, if I put freshwater prawn and I get this, and the same can be applied to other freshwater species, because our area really freshwater, because freshwater is really good. Marine is not saying bad, but we have so much of freshwater land in Malaysia and elsewhere. And why this is critical, because then the biotechnology can disrupt the entire ecosystem to have a quality food, quality and sustainable food, right? So please, for investors out there, do not only back e-commerce and IoTs and stuff like that. We do that kind of sexy stuff, but in the area of biotechnology. So food and table matters. With climate change, things are inevitable. So please invest in the future for your generations to have continuous supply of food. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Giva, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you so much for hosting us, Brian.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Giva Kuppusamy, the founder and CEO of GK Aqua, on Biztech's Asia's Hottest Startup Show. This video and podcast will be on our various platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.